Hey guys, thanks for stopping by to watch another video here at All I See is W, where we talk about finance, stocks, and Bitcoin. Today, I'd like to just give you an overall update on a Bitcoin mining company that I believe has the potential to 3 to 5x at a minimum. That is Riot Platforms, ticker RIOT. Why am I so bullish on Riot? I think that with the Bitcoin miners, especially with Riot, this undervalued company hasn't really had its bull run yet, similar to what we've seen to like MicroStrategy, Coinbase, other Bitcoin related plays. In fact, we've seen Mara ramp up just recently. Last Friday, yesterday, we saw that the Bitcoin share price for this miner, it went up to $30 and ended the market at around $27 for the price of Mara. And typically with Riot's current value share price, it tends to be at half the price of Mara. So it's definitely lagging behind. Technically, it should be at around like $15. We saw Riot break through $15 just recently, but I think that Riot has huge potential. It's undervalued. We'll talk more into details from a fundamental and technical analysis standpoint, but currently there's about 41 million shares that are short interest with Riot. That's about 12% of the company's publicly available shares. Overall, Riot has about 300 million shares available. But the good news is we're seeing a decrease from the previous reporting period with short interest. So currently at like 12% short interest, I think days to cover. That's a metric that we want to look at to see how long these shorters take to buy back shares. But good news, we're seeing a decrease in short interest, and I think that now that we've gone beyond like the October, November timeframe, we're going to start seeing bullish runs in the month of December onward, if and when Bitcoin price breaks through 100,000, starts hovering over 150,000, that's really going to look good for the miners. So that's why I think Riot has the potential to make huge runs. Let's look at the actual fundamental technical analysis. If you're new to this channel, I would really appreciate you hitting the like, subscribing for more related content. But just to give you some details on the fundamental analysis, we have Donald Trump, the new president-elect that will become the president in the coming weeks with the inauguration. Companies, countries, even retail investors like us all around the world, the goal right now is to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible. We have that feeling that it's going to be very scarce in the long run. The law of economics applies. It's not like fake news here with Bitcoin just being the commodity that will position the world in terms of what has value. And I think even the currency, like the US dollar, will all be relative and based on the price of Bitcoin. So I think we're still at this early state with Bitcoin, especially now that it's getting priced close to about 100,000. But I definitely think when you zoom out long-term perspective, Bitcoin, like what Kathy Woods, Michael Saylor would say, it'll get beyond the $1 million range. So we're still at the early phase when you look at it from a zoomed out perspective. But what does that mean for companies like Riot? I think there's huge potential here. Of course, we see shares available. That's been diluted, but that doesn't mean that the share price cannot go up. It still hasn't had its upward trajectory similar to what we've seen years ago. We see that in altcoins like Ripple, XRP, and XLM. It was dormant for many years, and all of a sudden it just went like bazooka, like skyrocketed. But now I think with the miners, it's really going to start bull running up. Let's take a look at the details from a fundamental technical analysis. So just to give you some context here. So back in 2021, we saw Riot ran all the way up to like, $78 here. and it's just been bleeding out from like 2021 all the way through 2023. It reached the sub $3. And then come this year, we begin to see some life in Riot platforms here, especially with the rise in the Bitcoin price in 2023, where Bitcoin reached 73,000, its prior test resistance, but then it started bleeding out again. But the good news here is, even though we see the continued downward trajectory of the price of Riot, especially with the Bitcoin halving that took place in April, a lot of the miners, they just bled out. Similar to Mara, Iron, CleanSpark, Core Scientific, Bitfarms. It was up until October, November is when we saw the rise in Bitcoin miners, especially with Donald Trump winning the US presidency. We know that he's a big leader in favor of just Bitcoin mining. And here I'm just showing you the potential here, especially with the relative strength index. We're beginning to see an upward trajectory here. I have a trend line here that if we can break through the $20 range, which I definitely think in December, it can be easily achievable with Riot, testing its prior resistance back in let's say July 2023, if it can test that $20 zone, that resistance zone, which I do have bullish sentiment that it's going to break through that $20 range, then we're looking at that bullish run going up heading into like the new year here. January is my projection. January, February is when it starts ramping up significantly here. So I definitely think that if it can break through that $45 range, then we start testing beyond that. But that's where I have it set at 45 as the potential here. So that's just like 3 to 4x currently, just with in a matter of months here. So I wouldn't ignore Riot platforms because they're definitely undervalued, and I definitely think that it's just been dormant for so long when you have this zoom out perspective. But I see that cup and handle forming from a long-term zone investment visual. Let's take a look at my X page here. So if you're new to Twitter or X, I would really appreciate you following me here at all I see is underscore W. You'll find me on X, but I posted on X here that I'm super bullish on Bitcoin miners heading into December. Riot, get ready for that big breakout zone. From a zoomed out perspective, what I see is a concentration of red candles here, which I have circle. And just looking at the relative strength index here, it's just been dormant for so long, right? So we haven't had that huge 70, 80 plus um, bullish run similar to what we've seen in 2021. So that's something not to ignore. One other interesting visual I wanted to share with you from Stock Pattern Pros, Tim here, is an image of Riot here. As you can see, $13 was Friday's price during the market, but it dropped to a 12.70. But just looking, giving you some context here, back in 2012, 2013, 2014, here in 2018, 2021 is what we saw recently. But just basing it off of the higher highs from just a yearly perspective, is that potential for it to test itself, right? Given this overbought trend line here. So we're currently at the basement low here. But I think from a strategic fundamental standpoint with investing, with everything being a cycles game, what goes down at the basement low will eventually go back up. And here you can just view this as being so undervalued here. So what's been down for so long from a year to year perspective will eventually pop back up. So that's one thing not to ignore from a fundamental and technical perspective, especially with the rise of Bitcoin, if and when Bitcoin breaks through the $100,000 in the coming days, weeks here. Just share with you overall details on what Riot is doing. So Riot currently has three main facilities here. They recently acquired a center in Kentucky, but most of the workhorse is being done here at Rockdale, and Corsicana will be the main workhorse once that gets fully up and running. But you can see here North America's largest Bitcoin mining facility by developed capacity. So here's an image of Rockdale here. You see all the miners here in emerging technology. Looks like a big company with just a big assembly line just mining for Bitcoin. They mine about, I'd say, close to about 20 Bitcoins per day. But you can see here the power capacity is about 700 megawatts with 500 megawatts of air cooling and 200 megawatts of immersion cooling. Rockdale hash rate, that contributes to about 15 exahash at the end of October. So good news here, just to see, give some context on their main workhorse at this time. But overall, their goal is to reach up to 36 exahash by the end of the year, which is next month. So that gives you some color on what the facility looks like at the Rockdale. Let's take a look at their new site, Corsicana. A lot of folks are excited about this 1 gigawatt development here. So you see this lake that Riot had built out to really help at one point cool down these miners if needed. But the goal here is, just having that continued development through 2024, 2025. What we see here, there's going to be a building to the left that they're working on that will deploy the same strategy here with the emerging technology. The Corsicana hash rate currently is at 13 exahash, so a little less than Rockdale. But you think about it, once Corsicana is fully implemented, this is going to be the main workhorse site here. So lots of development going on, and just congratulations to the team at Riot for implementing very fast. I think at the beginning of the year there was like no building; it was just all land. So that is looking very exciting. And with Kentucky totaling up to about 60 megawatts of operational capacity. So at one point, the Kentucky region will start ramping up as well. Currently 1.4 exahash, but I think the goal is to get your biggest bang for the buck with this recent acquisition this year with Block Mining's two sites. So they will start ramping up their exahash to develop 60 megawatts with the potential to expand to about 150 megawatts. This really allows Riot to expand their footprint geographically into the Tennessee region, and that's where we had also Donald Trump present during the Bitcoin conference, which was very exciting. So not only in Texas, but now, moving out to Tennessee as well. So that's good news for Riot. Now, just to give you overall updates on institutional holdings, so we have about close to 39% institutions holding Riot. Currently, there's 332 million shares out there. Good news, we see increased positions by institutional holders with lesser decreased positions, but we see increase in shares held by like Vanguard. They're like the biggest shareholder here with 32 million here. BlackRock is second biggest holder. Morgan Stanley, you see here. So a number of institutional holders, Charles Schwab, Invesco, mainly these institutional holders are building up their reserve with Riot shares. Why? Because they know that there's going to be appreciation with the share price. It's undervalued. That's why they're buying more. So there's just increased activity going on here. So you see increased activity. Vanguard bumped it up by 10%, Morgan Stanley by 50%. So they bought in at a good price there. But you see here, Goldman Sachs, 28%, BlackRock, 8%. So very good news, just seeing how much institutional holders really believe in Riot platform. But I definitely think that Riot, come the coming weeks heading into the new year, we're going to see very high points with Riot platforms. I definitely think that the 3 to 5x is coming for this company. So hold on tight and let's make some big bucks. But if you're new to this channel, please make sure to hit the like, subscribe, and if you have any comments, questions, I'd be interested to hear about it. What's your take? What's your price prediction? What's your investment strategy? Thanks, guys.